Griselda Blanco, known as La Madrina, the Godmother, and La Viuda Negra, the Black Widow, was a formidable and notorious figure in the world of drug trafficking. Her reign of terror, which spanned from the streets of Colombia to the bustling cities of the United States, is a tale of audacious ambition, ruthless violence, and an empire built on cocaine. Blanco's life story is one of incredible highs and catastrophic lows, and it provides a chilling glimpse into the dark side of the drug trade. This exploration into Blanco's life uncovers her rise and fall as one of the most notorious drug lords in history. Early life and formative years. Griselda Blanco was born on February 15, 1943, in Santa Marta, a coastal city in Colombia. Her early life was marked by instability and hardship. In 1955, Blanco and her mother, Ana Lucia Restrepo, moved to Medellin, Colombia's second-largest city. Restrepo, a sex worker struggling with addiction and prone to violent outbursts, could not provide the stable home Blanco needed. Their relocation was prompted by the violent upheavals in Colombia during the late 1940s. The assassination of a liberal leader in Bogotá in 1948 triggered a brutal, undeclared civil war between the country's two major political parties. The ensuing chaos saw political rivals and entire communities targeted and wiped out, creating an environment of extreme brutality and lawlessness. Blanco grew up in the gritty and dangerous streets of Medellin. Her neighborhood, Barrio Antioquia, was notorious for its crime, housing gangsters, prostitutes, and killers. It was a tolerant zone where illegal activities were overlooked by authorities, akin to a red light district. Blanco's early exposure to crime was inescapable. Starting as a petty pickpocket, she quickly graduated to more serious criminal endeavors. At just 11 years old, Blanco committed an act that would set the tone for her future. She kidnapped a boy from a wealthier neighborhood, intending to ransom him. When her threats were ignored, she coldly ended the boy's life, showcasing her willingness to use extreme measures to achieve her goals. By the mid-1950s, at the tender age of 13, Blanco escaped her abusive and alcoholic mother. She came into contact with Carlos Trillo, an older man involved in forgery and human trafficking. Trillo, who was known for smuggling Colombians into the United States, became Blanco's mentor and lover. Over the next 5 years, he taught her the art of forging passports and smuggling people, skills that Blanco quickly mastered. Their partnership blossomed into a criminal enterprise, moving thousands of people into the U.S. Trillo, and Blanco's relationship deepened, and they married, having 3 sons while splitting their time between Colombia and New York. The rise of the cocaine empire. The late 1960s brought a significant shift in Blanco's life. Carlos Trillo died under suspicious circumstances, officially attributed to liver failure, but many suspected Blanco's involvement. Griselda Blanco wasted no time in finding a new partner, Alberto Bravo, who was involved in drug trafficking rather than people smuggling. Bravo's operations were relatively small-scale compared to Blanco's ambitions. In the early 1970s, Blanco saw an opportunity in the burgeoning cocaine market in America. While cocaine was still emerging as a popular party drug, Blanco recognized its potential for massive profit. Blanco and Bravo teamed up, leveraging Bravo's connections and Blanco's criminal expertise to establish a cocaine empire. They began flooding New York City with cocaine, revolutionizing drug trafficking methods. Blanco devised a particularly ingenious method for smuggling cocaine into the U.S. Her operation involved using modified bras to hide the drugs, concealing them in garments to blend with women's natural figures. Blanco selected Colombian women as mules, training them to use their sexuality to distract customs officials. Each woman carried a kilo of cocaine, resulting in a net profit of $20,000 per mule. This method proved highly effective, allowing Blanco to flood New York with cocaine, dominating the market, and surpassing even the mafia in her reach and influence. By the late 1970s, Blanco's operations were so extensive that even Pablo Escobar, a low-level criminal at the time, admitted his fear of her. Blanco was making over $5 million a week in drug profits. Despite the fear she instilled, the D struggled to penetrate her operations, due to the tight-lipped nature of those involved. The investigation into Blanco's empire faced numerous challenges, including a lack of sophisticated technology and the use of coded language by the traffickers. The downfall and escape. The D finally made significant progress when they arrested a small-time dealer who cooperated in exchange for a lighter sentence. He revealed the name of Lil Perda, a distributor in Blanco's network. With wiretaps and surveillance, the D struggled to decode the complex jargon used by the traffickers. Terms like "somebody has left the funeral" could indicate that cocaine was en route to New York, while "beautiful children with good bones" referred to high-quality cocaine. Despite these hurdles, the D eventually obtained valuable information from Carmen Cabin, a veteran drug mule. She provided the names of 37 Colombians involved in the drug trade and identified Blanco as the mastermind behind it all. Before the D could act on the information, Blanco and Bravo vanished. Blanco's expertise in forgery allowed her to assume a new identity, and she fled with Bravo to Colombia. However, returning to Colombia in 1975 proved to be a critical mistake. The Medellin of her return was vastly different, dominated by a rising and ruthless gangster, Pablo Escobar. Escobar's rise to power would soon overshadow Blanco's operations and lead to a violent conflict. War with Pablo Escobar. In 1975, Blanco found herself in a fierce struggle with Escobar, who was quickly becoming a dominant force in the drug trade. Blanco resorted to her ruthless methods, using hired assassins to eliminate rivals and tighten her grip on the cocaine trade. She is even rumored to have pioneered the practice of murder by motorcycle, where a gunman on a bike would swiftly carry out assassinations before vanishing. Despite her efforts, Blanco was unable to keep pace with Escobar's relentless rise. Escobar's efforts to dismantle Blanco's empire included buying teams of hitmen to target her associates and seizing control of her drug laboratories. In addition to professional setbacks, Blanco faced personal turmoil. Her husband, Alberto Bravo, began spending more time away from Medellin, leading to rumors of an affair and his plans to leave Blanco. Tensions came to a head when Blanco discovered that millions of dollars from their organization were missing. In a confrontation outside a club in Bogotá, Bravo pulled out an Uzi, leading to a gunfight that ended with Bravo dead and Blanco wounded but alive. This brutal act cemented Blanco's reputation as the Black Widow, a ruthless figure willing to eliminate even her closest associates. A new era in Miami. After Bravo's death, Blanco remarried, this time to Dario Sepulveda, an associate of the notorious brothers. The couple had a son in 1978, naming him Michael Corleone Blanco, after the protagonist of the Godfather films. By the late 1970s, Blanco faced a crucial decision. With Escobar controlling Medellin, Blanco could either continue fighting and risk annihilation or flee. She chose to relocate, returning to the US, but not to New York. Instead, she set her sights on Miami, which was on the verge of becoming a major hub for the global cocaine trade. In 1980, Blanco began rebuilding her distribution network in Miami. The city, already a central point for cocaine trafficking, became engulfed in violence and chaos, as Blanco sought to carve out her new territory. The so-called Cartel Wars of 1981 saw Miami's murder rate soar to unprecedented levels, surpassing even Medellin in brutality. At one point, the city's morgue was so overwhelmed by bodies that it had to rent a refrigerated truck from Burger King to store them. Blanco's empire thrived as she and her three sons Dixon, Uber, and Asueldo managed distribution across different cities. Blanco invested heavily in Miami's real estate market, contributing to an economic boom despite her growing infamy. By the early 1980s, Blanco had established herself as one of the wealthiest women in the US, living in a luxurious Florida mansion. However, Blanco's life took another dark turn when Dario Sepulveda, frustrated with Blanco's decision to keep their son out of school, took Michael back to Medellin. Sepulveda was killed by police during a traffic stop, and Michael was returned to Miami. Blanco's ruthlessness was further exemplified by a hit she ordered at the Dadeland Mall, where a shooting left 2 dead and others injured. Her reign of terror continued as she orchestrated brutal retaliations against her enemies, including the murder of a 2-year-old boy, Johnny Castro, who was caught in the crossfire of a hit intended for his father. The final downfall. By the mid-1980s, Blanco was at the height of her power, but the constant threats and retaliations from rival gangs and law enforcement began to close in on her. In 1984, Blanco was forced to leave Miami and go into hiding in California due to the escalating danger and the D's intensified efforts to capture her. The D, driven by their obsession with Blanco, utilized informants and wiretaps to track her down. In April 1984, the D caught a break when they discovered Jerry Gomez, a Colombian businessman with connections to Blanco's sons. Gomez agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for leniency. With his help, Blanco's network was exposed, and several key figures were arrested. Blanco's operation crumbled as her associates were apprehended or turned on her. Despite her previous efforts to evade capture, Blanco was finally arrested in 1985 in California, ending her reign of terror. Blanco's trial was widely publicized, and her extravagant lifestyle was highlighted, including her infamous nickname, La Madrina, which reflected her formidable status in the drug trade. Blanco was convicted on multiple counts of drug trafficking and sentenced to prison. Her assets, including her Miami mansion, were seized by the authorities. Blanco's downfall marked the end of an era of unprecedented violence and crime in Miami. Her story became a symbol of the dangerous allure of the drug trade and the devastating impact it can have on individuals and communities. Griselda Blanco, once a powerful and feared figure, spent her final years in prison, reflecting on a life defined by greed, violence, and ruthless ambition. She was eventually released in 2004 and deported to Colombia, where she lived out her final years in relative obscurity. On September 3, 2012, Blanco was tragically gunned down by a hitman on a motorcycle, the same method she had famously employed in her early years. The assassination brought an end to the life of a woman who had once been a symbol of cocaine's devastating influence on both sides of the Atlantic. Griselda Blanco's story serves as a stark reminder of the dark side of ambition and the high cost of living a life of crime.